Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to share with you guys another frog-voiced review of an interesting pocket knife. This is the Kizer Mini Militaw, which, believe it or not, I've never actually reviewed. I unboxed these and talked about them a bit in first impressions, but I'm just late to the game reviewing the mini one. Truthfully, I considered not reviewing it because it is so similar to the big one. It's just smaller, but it is its own thing. So I want to briefly talk about it. It's not going to be a long review. It is going to be an oddly quiet one though, because right now with my voice being the way that it is, if I get too loud or too excited, I start coughing, which is fun for no one. So snuggle in and enjoy the weird froggy sounds of my voice in your TV speakers or phone or wherever you are. Thanks so much to Kizer for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This is a pretty premium one. This is actually gold anodized titanium and, believe it or not, zirconium for the inlays and an S45 EN blade. But this exact knife comes in budget form as well. In fact, they start at like $50. And even this guy with the premium materials is not all that crazy at $179. This is just typical Kizer. They've got something for everybody, and there's not really a huge difference between their less expensive stuff and their more expensive stuff outside of the materials used. This is a frame lock. Your budget knives or your budget versions of these knives will be liner locks, but the quality is still there. So if you're a more budget-oriented person, you like the idea of the Militaw, but you just don't like the idea of spending almost $200 for materials like titanium, S45VN, and zirconium, get the budget one because it's going to be essentially just as good. I'll link everything in the description, including the larger or full-size standard Militaw. So the overall length of this guy is coming in at 6.65, 6.7 inches. Blade length is coming in at about 2.75, and your cutting edge is coming in at also about 2.75 inches. How about some size comparisons? First off, let's put it up against the full-size Militaw. This was a special, it was like a website exclusive version with DLC mirror M390 and Damascus inlays. But here's the difference between these two in size, whether you get a budget version of this knife or you get a real special spicy premium one. I will say, Kizer, you got to add some satin DLC or mirror DLC options for the little guy, because like this setup in particular, this was a missed opportunity to do the special finish here. I don't know what this coating is, but it's not DLC, right? This feels like Kizer's basic black coating, which is PVD at best, but also likely paint, right? In any case, this is the size between the two. Let's do some other size comparisons with some other more common knives. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Other. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Much closer to the size of the Para 3, but still way smaller. But it has the exact same amount of cutting edge. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action this knife? This is a much smaller knife than the standard Militaw, so you'd think that it would be quite a bit more difficult to operate. Now, I'd be lying if I told you it was just as easy. I think, if you guys want to know, I think the Militaw is essentially the best Kizer knife that they've ever made. This is such a wonderful design, right? Not necessarily completely and totally original, right? There's lots of knife profiles out there that look similar, but as much as I love the full-size Militaw, this is admittedly very easy to operate despite being much smaller. I have to adjust a little bit because of the length of the handle, and it's not quite as satisfying. I don't have quite as much room as on the big one, obviously. The front flipper is pretty good, though, right? And then your standard thumb flick, again, having to adjust my hand a little bit more. I'm kind of already in position with the size of this one. But truthfully, it's the same experience, it's just smaller. So if your hands are a lot smaller than mine, I wear an XL glove, right? So if you wear like maybe a medium glove, or especially like a small glove, like this is going to feel really great to you. It's not necessarily better or worse. It's just preference or, what your hands are used to. Or, for people who just don't like to carry, maybe you've got bigger hands, you don't like to carry larger knives, or where you work prohibits the carry of larger knives, or whatever reason, right? This is still really nice. It functions just fine. Let's do carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Nope, we got to fight it. Power through. We got a knife review to do. It's about the same. These are contoured though, which is nice. The same thing on the budget ones. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Super easy, super compact. It's one of the bigger benefits of the smaller one here is it's just more compact. Weight will vary. This is going to be probably the heaviest model considering it's titanium and zirconium. So I'm going to weigh this, but the G10 ones are substantially lighter. Titanium, zirconium, S45VN, that's what we're looking at for materials here. Let's reset it. I don't know what it was weighing before. This guy weighs 3.2 ounces. So this is inevitably the heaviest version of this knife they make. All of the other versions will be even lighter, which is great, right? Balance on this guy is going to be butt heavy. It's going to prefer the butt, and that's fine. Many of us do. But yeah, we're still not that far off. So the lighter weight ones are going to be even more towards the pivot, which is fine. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So we're looking at a T8 for the pivot, and actually I think all of these little screws are going to be T8. They do use 4 screws for the inlays. This is the thing that bothers me about these Militaw setup. Like they should be doing some of these without this center material. And even if they do it, Kizer, you got to find a better way than 4 screws on each side. Like, it's fine. Nobody's going to die, right? And truthfully, you only need to disassemble the knife. You only need to take out this screw right here, right? So I'm going to reel that back in a little bit. It's irritating for people who want to take everything completely apart, right? But at the same time, if you own more than one of these, you can definitely swap out the inlay materials if you're swapping to the same style, right? So from one frame lock to another one, I think, right? Actually, they might all fit everything. But you can see here that these screws don't go through to a standoff. It's literally just these back here. So the only screws that you would need to remove to take this knife apart are obviously the pivot, and then you need these 2 here and the pocket clip screw, since that one acts as the screw that's holding the second standoff, the second screw that goes into the frame there. So yeah, it's a lot of screws for everything, but the only ones you're going to have to mess with are a few of them. So it's fine, actually. As long as you have the right tools for the job, should be good to go. Let's measure the blade stock thickness, and then we can move into the meat and potatoes here. It's going to be pretty short and sweet, honestly, guys. Blade stock thickness on this guy coming in at, it's very thin, 98 thousandths. Nice. Meat and potatoes. Ergonomically, it's good. Again, not quite as comfortable as the bigger guy. I just don't have quite as much room, and I feel like I notice the pocket clip more on the smaller one. In fact, the pocket clips aren't nearly as different in length as the knives are. So ergonomically, yeah, I just noticed this one a little more, but it's okay. There's nothing here that's like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Access the lock bar, very, very good. Very easy overall to manipulate for this size of knife. Front flipper, good. We kind of already talked about that. Again, we need more blade finishes, right? I know that Kizer's probably looking at this and going, it's not going to be as popular as the big one. And they're right. Most people are probably going to prefer the larger one. But still, if you guys are going to do, and this textured zirconium is awesome. It makes me want the whole knife to be just this. Like, that would look super cool, right? It'd be a lot heavier too. But I also want to see the shiny DLC options, right? I want to see Kizer's famous, high reflectivity stonewash finish, I just feel like they just have a couple of options. And also some of the strangest I don't know what is going on with the Militaw line, but Kizer was like, let's do like 2 or 3 like fairly normal color and material combinations. And then let's do wacky stuff like gummy worms with purple or red, or like, it was so weird. And there are some really strange color and material combinations for these knives. It's like like, it's fine to have options, but you guys did all of the wacky stuff and like none of the normal stuff that people prefer generally, I guess. I think you should have a better mix, because there's plenty of people who want the weird, wacky stuff, right? And there's also obviously plenty of people who want more subdued, I'm trying to not reduce the knife world specifically to a certain crowd of people, right? More of your standard black and tan and OD green, right? Or your solid colors, right? We did that. There's just a lot of weird, like techno party stuff. It's just strange. But this is a cool combination. I do like this. Blade geometry, great. It's good general cutting geometry, nice and thin, good tip. S45VN, absolutely amazing steel. It's one of my favorite steels to use, incredibly well balanced, very premium. You have no mounting position on the other side for a pocket clip, which is a huge miss. Like, come on. Left and right-handed, right? Even though it's a right-handed frame lock, very easy to operate with the left hand. The pocket clip, despite this being a knife that is specifically built for right-handed people, does not have a bald spot. If you're going to do this, you need to put a bald spot under the clip. The texturing's not that aggressive, right? It's that nice, slick, polished zirconium, so it's actually not a big deal. But still, though, it's pretty good retention on that clip. You want to put a bald spot there. Not a big deal. Steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop. No lanyard anything. You could wrap it around the standoff, but it's probably not a good idea, as it'll get sliced. You have a stop pin that is located internally, attached to the blade, and riding on channels on either side of the titanium. So lockup solidity is fantastic. No lock stick, up, down, left to right play is not present. I know that's a weird way for me to say that, so let's do that again. There is no blade play, up, down, left to right. No lock stick. There's no pivot lash. No, I'm wrong. That's weird. There is... What am I feeling here? Hold on. I'm trying not to cut myself. There's a little teeny tiny bit of pivot lash. What is pivot lash? I don't usually have to talk about it. It's when the hole in the blade is cut ever so slightly larger than the pivot barrel, right? To the point where there's a gap. It's not material on material all the way through, which would be perfect tolerances. Typically, that's what you see from companies like Kizer. I'll do this one. This one is absolutely perfect, which is usually the case. Is this a downside? It does not affect the knife functionally at all, unless the gap is massive and you have the thing like flopping around in there. This is so minimal, I wasn't even sure that I was feeling it. I thought I was feeling something else, right? So it's essentially nothing. Not a big deal, not something that I count off for, but if I feel it, I try to be honest about it and let you guys know. Nice detent. Blade looks perfectly centered to me and no detent lash. So again, base price of this knife in budget form, $50. Is it worth it? Yeah, I think your base steel is either Nitro V or 14C28N. It could be D2, 154cm, something like that. They have a lot of those types of steels in their inexpensive line, and they're all great, right? I don't think it's D2, but any of those other steels would be just fine, which I think is what the base steel is, right? But it's definitely worth it at $50, and it's pretty impressive on the premium side. But a lot of people, once they get up to that price point, they're going to be looking at the bigger one, because it's, for a lot of people, it's just more satisfying to spend that type of money on a larger object. So at the end of it all, which one do I personally like better? I like the bigger one better. That doesn't mean the small one's bad. The small one's good. It's plenty recommendable, right? So this is going to go in two different playlists, since I'm not going to review the budget and the premium version of this, because they're essentially the same thing. But I do recommend this knife. But I would also say consider looking at the larger one and just buy the one that's best for you. I'm going to link both the small and the large. They both come in budget and premium form. They're all great. Just pick the one that meets your budget and pick the one that's right for your hand or to your preferences. But they're all good and they're all recommendable. So even though the one that we're reviewing is not a budget knife, I'm going to put this video in the Cheap Knives I Like playlist. because there is a version of it that is under $75. It's also going to go in my recommended knives playlist because generally speaking and genuinely speaking, I do recommend this knife. So that's going to be pretty much it. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on the Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.